Level 2 is a whole new game, and not only because the content is drastically harder, but also because of the way the exam is structured. Every question is tied to a widget, and that means more reading, more filtering, and more precision. It's not about solving 10 formulas back to back, it's about picking the one right formula out of 5 possibilities, applying it in the right context, and ignoring all the extra noise. The key is to stay calm and read with intent and never assume they're asking the same thing as they did in level 1 because they rarely are. Now, in level 2, ethics goes deeper into gray areas, intent and disclosure, and the wording gets trickier. Before reading the vignette, check the question at the end first. Did the analyst violate the standard? That gives you a lens to read the rest. Even if it's something that benefits the client, if there is no proper disclosure or documentation, it's often still a violation. And yes, the CFA Institute still loves the most conservative by the book answer. Quants in level 2 usually comes with a regression table or time series output, and your job is to spot significance and red flags. For regression questions, scan p-values and t-stats to figure out which variables matter. Don't get lost in the noise. For time series, check if the data is stationary and whether autocorrelation is present. If they mention Durbin-Watson, remember, the closer it is to 2, the better. Anything much lower could mean autocorrelation is a problem. The econ section isn't massive, but when it comes up, it usually tests currency arbitrage or economic growth models. For forex arbitrage, draw the triangle or conversion flow. Don't rely on mental math. For growth theory, check if they're talking about absolute or conditional convergence. That difference often decides the answer. Read the question slowly and catch keywords like productivity or capital deepening. Now, FSA Level 2 is all about clean, step-by-step breakdowns. Whether it's pensions, currency translations, or intercorporate investments, you need to build a quick reconciliation in your head, or better, jot it down on paper. If they ask you for an impact on ROE or OCI, write it out. Do not assume. Follow the flow of how each component affects the financials. It's easy to get tripped up by similar answer options that differ by just one adjustment. Now, corporate finance here goes beyond theory. You'll see real options, capital budgeting with scenario probabilities, or cost of capital with embedded adjustments. For real options, ask yourself if the firm has flexibility or if there is an irreversible choice. That's the heart of it. When calculating NPV with options, make sure you know whether the option value is included or needs to be added. And if it's working capital related, carefully read whether it's part of the initial investment or ongoing. Now, this section is heavy with valuation models, DDM, residual income, justified PE, and there is no shortcut. Write out the formula first every time. If they mention something like ROE fades to required return, that tells you the normal income is dropping, which hits terminal value. So don't just compute, think conceptually, where is value being created and when does it stop? Now, fixed income at this level often comes with binomial trees or term structure models. With binomial trees, start at the end and work backwards. It's the only way to avoid confusion. For questions involving key rate duration or yield curve shifts, slow down and ask, which part of the curve is moving? If it's a twist, not a parallel shift, your answer needs to reflect that nuance. Derivatives go deeper now. You'll see Black-Scholes, future pricing, and interest rate swaps. First, check if the question is asking you for price or value. It changes the formula entirely. For options, be super clear if you're long or short, and remember how volatility, time, and rates affect each Greek. Don't mix up inputs. Many wrong answers come from using the right formula with the wrong variable. In alts, fee structures are a favorite, especially in private equity. If they give you a hurdle rate and carried interest, calculate profits after management fees and then apply the carry only on the excess. If there's a catch-up clause, don't skip it. It often changes how carry is applied. For real estate questions, look out for NOI and cap rates. They're usually testing direct cap valuation. Now, portfolio questions usually involve multi-factor models, active-passive returns, or behavioral biases. For factor models, plug in the numbers one by one. Don't try to skip steps. In behavioral questions, focus on how the investor is acting, not just what they said. If someone won't sell losing stocks, That's a disposition effect, not just loss aversion. Pay attention to the pattern, not just the label. So guys, I hope that this gives you more clarity on how to prepare for level 2. I hope that you've seen this, hopefully a few weeks, maybe a couple of months before the exam to help you prep even further. As always, if you find value, give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment if there's anything else you'd like us to do.